Hey minions, welcome to Crank It Up. I'm Jim Price, and on this episode of King of the Hill, I want to talk about the big hero of the Warriors. We've reached the home stretch of factions with only a few to go until every faction has had coverage. Some factions I am saving for the end to end on something strong, but this isn't one of those. The big hero has the talent with an aura ability. You can either play a monster here or destroy a monster here. The Warriors are all about monster control, one of only two factions that can play them, and they play a lot more monsters than the mages. Because the ability directly references monsters, there aren't going to be a lot of direct synergies, and that is a large part of the reason why the Warriors are my least played Munchkin faction. That's not an indication that they are bad, just that synergy is hard to find. You have to look beyond the words of the ability and see what the big hero is trying to do. The big hero can play a monster, but why? Largely to slow down the base from scoring and stall for time. It's not so much about the monster as it is about manipulating the base, although the Warriors benefit from monster-specific interactions. You can destroy the monster to speed the base up while receiving treasures. There is also treasure farming, where the monsters are just a vehicle to draw from the treasure deck. The purest way to draw a treasure card is to use the Master Thief, once per turn. Alternatively, the big hero can alternate uses of the talent, playing a monster one turn and destroying it the next. The question is, does that generate more than one treasure per turn, which the Master Thief does? To evaluate the big hero, you need to understand the monster deck. Most monsters provide at most 2 treasures, the lone exception being the Plutonium Dragon, which meant you can net 1 extra treasure once. The more likely scenario is that you will get caught up in a ghoul loop, which the big hero hates. It means drawing a treasure once every other turn while providing a minimal stall tactic to the base. Of course, the big hero can combine with other cards to facilitate drawing treasures. Dungeon Bait can play a monster, which the big hero can destroy, which makes the process faster. But this doesn't necessarily work in practice, because you're using your action to not advance your cause. And it seems reminiscent of Swipe, which I don't find to be a particularly good card. Only 30% of the monster deck will give you 2 treasures with a single kill, and you have to contend with the ghoul loop. Of course, 20% of the deck will play an additional monster, so unless the deck is empty or a very clearly misguided rule is in place, this just leaves the lingering breakpoint increases on the base. Maybe you want that. After all, the Warriors want to stall. But how effective is that stalling? I think that stalling in small increments doesn't do much, and if I want treasures, I want more control over what I am getting. Each monster adds at least 2 breakpoint, because web trolls will play another monster, and it's more likely that Poltergeist will become a 3. The problem is, some combinations can easily outpace the rate at which you stall, which is why I think that the big hero's true value is in excessive stalling and then providing the means to catch up. In the simplest form, playing him to immediately destroy a monster as part of a big drop can make sense. He can only impact one base, since the entirety of the ability is localized, so why not use him for a surprise attack? He has engine-like qualities, but the reality of the ability may not warrant that all the time. You can also play a monster just to charm it or warcry it. The problem with the big hero, and monster manipulation in general, is that you don't know what you are getting. You'd love it if the sole monster you played was a Bigfoot, as that 7 power is a large deterrent. You have to keep an eye on the monster deck and predict what will come out, or keep playing monsters till you get what you want. I have actually used other abilities to play monsters until I got the right solo monster. The Warriors have some odd cards, looking at you, Shield of Ubiquity, but the temporary presence of monsters may not be bad. You can play a monster on one turn so that you can stall, play campaign to boost the power of many of your minions, then destroy the monster. You won't lose the power bonus, unlike Shield of Ubiquity, which is often a net negative. You could also cleave it, hoping that the treasures that you get will be even more of a swing. My personal favorite play is to greatly overwhelm a base with monsters, playing one there every turn, to the point where there is no incentive for anyone else to play on that base. This works extremely well with Ruckus and the star player. In fact, both star players sometimes. The idea is that the base becomes so undesirable that players stop playing there, making it an easy eventual win. Or they will try to outpace you, which makes their victory inefficient or yours more efficient. After the base has been loaded with monsters, you can play Ruckus to destroy all of them, generating a lot of power counters. Of course, this makes for an extreme overpay, and using both of your 4s and one of your kings, so you want to extract maximum value. If you put both star players on that base, the giant ants can use under pressure to transfer counters from one star player to the other, setting up an extreme We Are the Champions play to send a ton of power to another base to break that. Assuming one of those treasures that you got along the way was Potion of Halitosis, one of those bases should be uncontested. With the AntiTen, you get an extra action to play We Will Rock You, which should have the number of turns needed to create the counters you need, although this does make We Are the Champions less powerful. Because this is a talent, you can do it freely while competing on other bases with your regular play, and a slow faction like the Ants love the stall tactics. With a talent like the Big Hero, which is an ore, it's natural to think to pair this with a Fairy Titan for easy treasure farming. But I don't like this combination together, and you aren't farming as many treasures as you think, and you aren't actually stalling anything. Instead, I prefer the Werewolf Titan because it makes more sense to double up both sides of the ability. Playing 2 monsters is an extreme stall tactic and much more effective. Then you can destroy both next turn. You get the same amount of treasures as the fairy case, but you have much more flexibility and can actually stall the base. In fact, this can be pretty brutal if you happen to draw boots of running really fast. The Great Wolf Spirit lets you use talents on your cards, regardless of whether or not you own them. So if you play this action on the Big Hero, you can have a mobile monster planter who can move twice and plant 2 monsters each turn. You can play a monster, move him, play another monster, move him back, or set up the next base instead. You will run out of monsters eventually, but this does ensure that Night of the Living Dead will come out and make a base unfeasible for anyone but you. In this context, you get your choice of Ruckus play. You could also throw in Marking Territory to make things confusing, but that base may still have enough power to break. Another Titan that works well with the Big Hero is Moon 03, since you can know what monster is coming. This is useful for solving the Ghoul loop as well. On one turn, you could help influence which monster will come out. The next turn, you can influence which reward you'll get for destroying it. When you combine delaying the base with bleeding a player of minions, it can make for a very frustrating game for your opponents. When you view the Big Hero base as undesirable, you have another form of area control, which area control factions love because there are so few cards that exacerbate what they're trying to do. This can mean forcing players into playing on Imperial Dragon bases because it's too hard to compete on a base swarmed with monsters. You can force players to discard cards just to get minions that are actually useful. With Enshrouding Mist, you have the means to catch up because the Berserkers can help destroy the weaker monsters while the Big Hero takes out the biggest one. You are effectively playing with one less base, which in 2-player can be extremely strong since you are only using one card to effectively ward off the entire base. Unlike other aspects of area control, there is no workaround unless you can cancel the ability or destroy the monsters, which makes it very efficient at making others inefficient. The Big Hero is in an odd position. Stalling is generic enough to be useful to most, but very few can benefit from it directly. He isn't the best at treasure acquisition, which is why, in my experience, he has been focused on slowing the game to a crawl. I really like making him mobile, so if you could pull monsters off the base, that works well too. But in general, I prefer to play the warriors with specific partners and don't see this as a general purpose faction. Your experience may differ, and I'd love to hear about it. So let me know in the comments. That's it for this week. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Let's shut it down.